Baby, let me tell y'all something about me. When I'm loyal, I'm loyal. But when I ain't shit, baby, I ain't shit.
November 24th, 2024. Jason Bloomfield never showed up for work. No call, no text, just gone. 5 days later, his family, his mother and 15-year-old son, found him in his own apartment, lying lifeless. But here's the twist. Jason had been dead for days and no one knew. Not his friends, not his coworkers, and not even his girlfriend, Veanitta Lenon. How could someone live with a body for days without raising suspicion? It wasn't just the silence that struck them, it was the way she played it off. She arrived at the scene, crying, but there were no tears. Her grief? A performance. The real question is, what happened during those 5 days? How did Jason end up dead in that apartment, and why was his girlfriend acting as if nothing was wrong? What was she hiding, and why did it take his family 5 days to uncover the truth? Most shocking, no one called the police? Jason's death was a brutal shock, but what followed is even more disturbing. The mystery behind Veanitta's strange behavior, the lies, the manipulations. What did she know, and when did she know it? Was it her or his baby mama? The answers don't come easy. As the pieces fall into place, the story you're about to hear will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, betrayal, and the darkness that can hide behind closed doors. Welcome to Hidden Crime Network, where we dive deep into the darkest corners of real-life crimes. These are the stories that keep you up at night, twisted betrayals, deceptions, and heartbreaking endings. If you're here, you already know the gravity of what's happening in the world, and you're ready to see the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. But here's the thing. If you care about these stories and you believe others should hear the truth, don't just watch quietly. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Let's create awareness. The little support counts in making changes. Share this with your friends because stories like Jason's can't be ignored. They need to be heard. The truth doesn't spread on its own. It's because of people like you and I that these stories find their way into the light. And hey, while you're at it, let us know in the comment where you're watching from. Stay tuned and stick around to the end. You won't want to miss the twists in this one. Trust me, it'll leave you questioning everything. Jason Bloomfield was 46 years old. He worked as a manager at a Burger King in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. A man who lived simply, worked hard, and was deeply proud of his role as a father. Jason was known for his reliability and for being there when his family needed him. His friends and colleagues respected him, and his family, especially his mother and 15-year-old son, depended on him. But November 24th, 2024, was the day Jason didn't show up for work. And just like that, the silence began. His boss tried reaching him, but there was no response. His friends checked in, no luck. Jason had vanished, and the worry set in. But no one could have anticipated the horror that was about to unfold. 5 days passed, and his family became frantic. Jason's mother and son finally decided to check his apartment. When they walked through the door, they were met with an unimaginable sight. There, in the bedroom, was Jason's body, already beginning to decompose. The reality hit them like a punch in the gut. A man they loved, a man they never thought they'd lose so suddenly, was gone. But what was worse than the state of the body was the fact that Jason had been dead for days. 4 or 5 agonizing days, his family and the world went on without knowing where he was, while he lay in that apartment. Why did no one know? How did this happen? It wasn't just the discovery that tore at their hearts. It was the torment of what came next. The woman Jason trusted, the woman who was supposed to be there for him, was standing there in front of his body, playing the part of a grieving girlfriend. But was she really grieving? November 23rd, 2024, began like any other day for Jason Bloomfield. He was supposed to be at work, but by the end of the day, he had vanished, and his family had no idea what had happened to him. Around that time, neighbors heard something unsettling, a series of 6 loud gunshots echoing through the Fort Lauderdale apartment complex. No screams, no frantic shouts, just the sound of gunfire. Was it an argument that escalated? Or was it something darker, something planned? The next day, Jason didn't show up for work, and no one could get in touch with him. His family started reaching out, but there was no response. Jason's girlfriend, Veanitta Lenon, brushed it off, claiming he might be with an ex or dealing with something personal. But his absence stretched into days. Why did no one think to call 911 sooner? Why was his body left undiscovered for so long? It wasn't until November 29th, 2024, that Jason's mother and 15-year-old son decided to check his apartment. They couldn't get through the back door, one that had been removed from its hinges, but finally, they managed to get inside. What they found was horrific. Jason's body, wrapped in blankets and clothes, had been hidden under a pile on the floor. He had been shot multiple times. But who killed him? Jason's mother and son quickly realized something was off. Veanitta had arrived at the scene, but her behavior was disturbing. She showed no genuine grief. Neighbors reported she seemed oddly calm, even fake crying, without shedding a tear. Her stories to others painted a different picture, suggesting Jason had left her, that he was with his ex. But was that the whole truth? The investigation would reveal strange texts sent from Jason's phone after his death, including messages claiming Jason had gone off with another woman. Could it be his ex-wife, someone with a motive? Or was it Veanitta, who might have been hiding something darker? These questions loomed large as investigators began to dig deeper. Witnesses reported that Veanitta had tried to create an alibi, telling neighbors conflicting stories about what had happened. She also made several attempts to use Jason's bank account after his death, transferring money into her own hands. But as investigators pieced together the clues, a larger question emerged. Was the story behind Jason's murder as simple as it seemed, or was something more complicated at play? Alright, true crime lovers, it's time for a brain teaser game. Here's how this works. We've exposed some key clues so far, and now we're putting your detective skills to the test. Can you figure out what really happened here, or will you miss the details that the professionals didn't? The rule is simple. Pause the video if you need to, and head to the comments to drop your theory. Don't worry, no one's judging if you're wrong, but let's see if you've got what it takes to crack this case before we reveal what the pros found. Here's the summary of what you know so far. 6 gunshots were heard by neighbors on the night of November 23rd. Jason's body was found by his mother and son after 5 days. There were suspicious text messages sent from Jason's phone, including claims about an ex-girlfriend. Veanitta was seen acting oddly calm when she arrived at the scene, and was caught trying to create an alibi. Now, let's see if you can piece it all together. Who do you think is behind this crime? And why? Comment your thoughts, and stay tuned to see if you're right. Let's continue. Veanitta Lenon, 37, was no stranger to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Standing at just 4 feet 11 inches tall, she had a presence that didn't quite match the weight of her past. She was known to her friends and family as someone who was always in motion, someone who'd been through a lot but seemed to keep a cool exterior. She had a criminal past, including charges of fraud and theft, though it was never enough to keep her from landing jobs and moving around the city. But there was more to Veanitta than what people saw. She had been in a relationship with Jason Bloomfield for an undisclosed period before his death. The two had been living together in the apartment, a space that had become Jason's home, but would later be the scene of his brutal murder. But what was their relationship really like? Did Veanitta truly love him, or was there something else at play? In the weeks leading up to Jason's death, Veanitta's behavior became erratic, at least according to neighbors. While Jason was often described as a man who worked hard to care for his family, Veanitta seemed to slip further into a state of discontent. Financial strain, ongoing arguments, and the tension of a collapsing relationship were slowly suffocating her. She was constantly on edge, and those close to her noticed a shift, a growing frustration that seemed to bubble just beneath the surface. Veanitta's social media presence revealed another side of her, posts full of messages about spirituality and personal struggle. One such post on Facebook, made weeks after Jason's death, read, "Satan gets busy, but you gotta know when he's working so you can let God handle it for you." This was a sharp contrast to the reality of her relationship with Jason, which, according to investigators, was filled with deceit and manipulation. Despite her claims of being the victim, stories she told about their relationship were inconsistent. She told friends Jason had gone off with an ex-girlfriend, yet she later told others he had left for work. As investigators began to piece the puzzle together, they began to see a woman who was perhaps less of an innocent partner and more of a manipulator, weaving lies to cover up a dangerous truth. What was Veanitta's role in Jason's death? Was she simply a victim of circumstance, or was there something darker at play? The truth was slowly unraveling, but it wasn't as simple as it seemed. After the murder, Veanitta Lenon wasted no time in trying to cover her tracks. The body of Jason Bloomfield lay in their shared apartment, hidden under a pile of clothes and blankets in the bedroom, where it remained undisturbed for 5 days. As the clock ticked, The stench of death seeped into the walls, but Veanitta didn't call 911. She didn't report anything out of the ordinary. Instead, she kept up appearances, going on with her life as though nothing had happened. Neighbors recalled seeing her, going about her routine, even engaging in casual conversations as if everything was fine. But the truth was, Veanitta had a lot to hide. Not only did she know what had happened to Jason, but she was also working hard to create a narrative that would divert attention away from her. When Jason's body was discovered by his mother and son, Veanitta arrived at the scene in his BMW. Witnesses described her as eerily calm. Her grief was nothing more than a performance, a bout of fake crying with no real tears. How could someone be so detached, so cold? And why was she acting like this? As investigators began to question her, Veanitta tried to paint a picture of a strained relationship between her and Jason, claiming he had been cheating and that they had been on the verge of breaking up. She suggested he had disappeared with his ex-girlfriend, making it seem like Jason had simply walked away. But the pieces of the puzzle weren't adding up. Why would he leave in the middle of the night and not tell anyone? The lies didn't stop there. In her conversations with neighbors, Veanitta spoke about the situation as if it were a simple breakup. She mentioned that she had gone to visit her family, that they had been arguing, and that Jason was upset. She even tried to use his phone to text his sister, pretending to be him, sending out messages like nothing was wrong. Yet, these messages seemed out of place, long late-night texts that weren't typical for Jason's usual communication style. And the story about him leaving for work, it didn't add up either. In fact, when police interviewed her again, she changed her story multiple times, trying to explain away the inconsistencies. Veanitta's behavior was telling a different story, a woman desperate to cover up a crime she had committed. The physical evidence was just as damning. Investigators found that she had tried to clean up the scene, using bleach and rags to wipe away bloodstains. But no matter how hard she tried to erase the evidence, traces of her actions remained. From dragging Jason's body into a bedroom to moving furniture to block the view of the crime scene, her attempts to cover up what happened were painfully obvious. And yet, she continued to lie, attempting to mislead investigators and anyone who would listen. Behind the violence, there was a dark, growing desperation, one that stemmed from financial strain. Jason Bloomfield and Veanitta Lenon weren't living the dream life in their Fort Lauderdale apartment. They were struggling, barely getting by. Bills piled up, and an eviction notice loomed over their heads. The stress of mounting debt and the fear of losing their home was taking a toll. But it wasn't just about surviving, it was about escaping the pressure, and for Veanitta, finding a way out. In the days leading up to Jason's murder, the tension between the couple was palpable. Financial struggles often strain relationships, and in this case, it seemed to push Veanitta to the edge. Was it just the constant stress that led to the tragedy, or was there something more deliberate behind it? Did she view Jason as a means to an end? The unraveling of Jason's financial situation pointed to a disturbing possibility, that Jason wasn't just a partner in life, he had become a financial resource for Veanitta. When investigators looked into Jason's bank account, they found disturbing evidence of Veanitta's actions. Just days after the murder, she used his phone to access his Zelle account, transferring $500 into her own hands. This wasn't just a spontaneous act of panic. It was calculated. After killing Jason, she saw an opportunity to seize control of his financial assets, something she couldn't have done if he was alive. The coldness of her actions painted a disturbing picture. Instead of calling the authorities, she took his money and tried to cover up her involvement. The violent act had been a step in her plan to secure a future, one that didn't involve facing the consequences of her actions. But why $500? It was a small amount, but enough to raise a crucial question. Was this just the beginning? What else had Veanitta been planning? Was this murder truly a one-off crime of passion, or had she been biding her time, waiting for the perfect moment to act? The more investigators uncovered, the clearer it became that financial desperation wasn't the sole cause of Jason's murder. It was a trigger, but the extent of Veanitta's manipulations went far beyond money. It was about control, about escaping the suffocating reality of their shared life. But did she think she could get away with it? As the investigation progressed, the detectives began to build a stronger case, but questions remained. Was Veanitta acting alone in this, or was there someone else who stood to benefit from Jason's death? And what would the true motive reveal about the woman at the center of it all? As we explore this case, think about the signs that may have been missed. In relationships, we sometimes overlook red flags, small signs that indicate something isn't right until it's too late. For Jason, the tension in his relationship with Veanitta may have been building for months, yet he never fully realized the danger until it was too late. How many of us ignore those early warning signs? The jealousy, the manipulation, the small fights that eventually grow into something more dangerous. Jason's death serves as a chilling reminder that we need to address these issues before they escalate. If you care about stories like this and want others to know the truth, like and share this video if you haven't. Someone out there needs to understand the importance of recognizing the danger before it's too late. The investigation into Jason Bloomfield's murder began to take shape as detectives sifted through the mounting evidence. Each clue revealed more about the tragedy that had unfolded behind closed doors. The pieces of the puzzle were scattered, but one thing became clear. Veanitta Lenon was at the center of it all. The first lead came from the scene itself. Jason had been found lying lifeless under a pile of blankets and clothes. The gunshots neighbors heard on the night of the murder matched the timeline, and the medical examiner confirmed that he had been dead for days. His body, already decomposing, showed signs of a violent death. But why did no one report hearing a struggle? Why did it take so long for anyone to call 911? That question lingered in the air. Detectives focused next on the phone, Jason's phone. After his death, someone had sent several messages from his account, including one to his sister, claiming that Jason had left with his ex-girlfriend. But Jason hadn't left. He was dead, and those messages were sent after he was killed. The phone's GPS revealed crucial details. Veanitta had been using the phone, sending the messages to create an alibi, a twisted attempt to throw off investigators. As detectives pieced together Jason's final days, they discovered more disturbing evidence. Veanitta had used his credit cards and bank accounts, transferring money to herself just hours after his death. The forensic analysis showed that she'd been at Jason's apartment, not just the night of the murder, but in the days after as well, lying about where she'd been, covering her tracks. The chilling discovery was the security footage from a nearby store. Veanitta was seen shopping days after Jason had been killed, going about her business as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just taken a life. This nonchalance raised even more questions. What drove her to such extremes? Was it desperation? Was it something deeper? The final blow came when investigators found traces of cleaning agents, Clorox specifically, at the crime scene. It seemed like Veanitta had tried her best to remove any trace of blood or forensic evidence. She had dragged Jason's body, moved furniture, and wiped down every surface, but forensic experts were able to uncover minute traces of blood that she had missed. The crime scene had been meticulously altered, but it wasn't enough to cover the truth. As detectives continued to piece together the evidence, the picture of what happened that night became clearer. But with each new revelation, the burning question remained. Why had Veanitta gone to such lengths to erase the truth? Was it a crime of passion? Or had something far darker driven her to this extreme? In the aftermath of Jason Bloomfield's death, Veanitta Lenon's behavior was anything but normal. It was clear that she was trying to cover her tracks, but what stood out most was her ability to manipulate everyone around her. The day Jason's body was discovered, she arrived at the scene, visibly distressed but in a way that felt rehearsed. Witnesses would later report that her cry appeared fake, no tears, and seemed hollow, lacking any true emotional depth. Even worse, after the discovery of the body, Veanitta quickly pivoted to a series of false narratives. She told friends, neighbors, and even the police that Jason had taken off with another woman. In one instance, she claimed Jason had been seeing his ex behind her back, trying to paint the picture that he had left willingly. But this was far from the truth. The police knew that Jason hadn't left the apartment, he had been murdered. Veanitta's attempt to distort the truth wasn't just a cover-up. It was a deliberate strategy to deflect suspicion and protect herself. Her attempt to manipulate the situation extended to social media as well. In a post shared on December 11, 2024, just weeks after Jason's death, Veanitta wrote cryptic and unsettling messages. One post stood out, where she talked about Satan getting busy, and how one should recognize when he's working. This bizarre post, shared publicly on her Facebook, was disturbing when seen in the context of everything that had happened. It seemed as if she was trying to maintain some sort of moral high ground, while simultaneously hiding the dark truth. Meanwhile, Veanitta's interactions with others continued to be filled with contradictions. In one conversation with Jason's sister, Veanitta claimed that they had broken up and that Jason had left with another woman. However, the messages Veanitta sent from Jason's phone were long, out of character, and sent at odd hours. This wasn't Jason. It was a desperate attempt to fabricate a narrative where she could play the innocent partner caught in a chaotic situation. As detectives continued to sift through the evidence, these fabrications stood out. Veanitta was playing a game, attempting to manipulate the perceptions of everyone around her. It wasn't just the act of lying, it was the psychological manipulation that seemed to be her focus. She wasn't just covering up a crime, she was orchestrating a performance, hoping to get away with murder while keeping up appearances. The legal proceedings against Veanitta Lenon took a decisive turn when she was arrested on May 2, 2025, in Fort Lauderdale. This came after an intense investigation that unearthed damning evidence against her. A simple patrol officer's recognition led to her capture, but what followed was a saga of legal maneuvers and courtroom drama. Veanitta's arrest was based on a comprehensive 43-page warrant signed by a county circuit judge, detailing witness accounts, physical evidence, and even digital forensics. Despite the overwhelming evidence against her, Lenon maintained a not guilty plea, setting the stage for a gripping legal battle. Veanitta faced charges of second-degree murder with a firearm and fraudulent use of a deceased person's personal information for financial gain. She was denied bond, and on May 28, 2025, she appeared at her arraignment in a Florida court. The case against her was strong. Witnesses testified to hearing gunshots, cell phone records placed her at the scene, and forensic evidence, including GPS data and Zelle money transfers, painted a clear picture of her actions. Yet, in the face of this mounting evidence, Veanitta's defense team stood firm, claiming innocence, and her not guilty plea reflected a complex strategy. In addition to the murder charge, Veanitta was also accused of using Jason's bank account, stealing money after his death. This fraudulent act, linked to the desperation she felt in a financially unstable relationship, added another layer of cold calculation to her already heinous actions. It also made it clear that her motivations weren't purely emotional, but driven by the need for financial security. But the legal showdown didn't stop there. The courtroom drama loomed large as the prosecution prepared to present its evidence, and the defense strategized on how to counter it. The stakes were high. If convicted, Veanitta faced a potential life sentence for second-degree murder, with the added weight of her fraudulent actions potentially leading to additional years in prison. As she awaited trial, the question lingered: would the strength of the evidence overcome her unyielding denial? Or would she succeed in convincing the court of her innocence, despite the irrefutable facts? As the trial approached, the spotlight shifted from the chilling actions of that fateful night to the uncertainty of the legal process. As we close this heart-wrenching case, one thing is crystal clear: manipulation, desperation, and toxic relationships can lead to devastating consequences. Financial struggles, emotional isolation, and lies drove Veanitta Lenon to an unimaginable act, ending Jason Bloomfield's life far too soon. The pain his family feels is immeasurable, and his tragic death is a reminder of how easily relationships can break down when warning signs are ignored. This case also teaches us an important lesson: recognize the red flags. We all have a responsibility to look out for those we care about. Toxic relationships can be deadly, and sometimes it's only after the damage is done that we realize how much could have been prevented. What do you think? Could this tragedy have been avoided? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's continue the conversation. If you're captivated by these true crime stories and want to stay updated, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. And if you feel this story needs to be shared, spread the word. Let's make sure Jason's story is never forgotten. The truth matters, and justice should always prevail. Until next time, remember to pay attention to signs, trust your instincts, and never ignore the red flags. Sometimes the hardest lessons come too late, but it's never too late to choose a better path. Stay safe, stay aware, and thank you for joining us today. See you on another story from the Hidden Crime Network. Bye for now.